Just was looking for something else to do, mainly to keep me motivated to keep working out and stay in the gym. This spectacle is what it's all about to me. We really did kind of change the tone of the way Chicago wrestling was being viewed. He was one of my favorite people to work with. I got to wrestle one of my heroes, and we just rolled with it and had a blast. Ice Pick Vic, because they all had to have their mafia nicknames. Never say never. There's always a possibility if something comes up, if the right situation presents itself. I worked the Steiner brothers where Rick Steiner bit my ass and I went home to my girlfriend with teeth marks.
Call it how I see it, straight talk, no disguise. Southern slang dripping, got the truth in my eyes. Might like gavel, every word lay it down. Coach C in the booth, turn the game all around. Yeah, it's Coach C, he the best for business. It's Coach C, he the best for business. Yeah, I'm sharp as attack when I call the play-by-play. Every dog got his day, and I make the crowd stay. It's every week we go live on a Wednesday. Dressing so sharp, that's the reason why your friends stay. The youngest in the game to do it, best for business. Coach C is the truth, and everybody gonna witness. Love entertainment, you swear it's your destiny. Link with Coach C, we can talk about your legacy. It's Coach C, he the best for business. It's Coach C, he the best for business.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Another episode of Best for Business. This one I'm looking forward to. Vic Capri, thank you so much for joining me for this one.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm excited for this one. One of the guys that I hear your name often from, he's from New England, Joey Eastman, always talks very highly of you. So all these years later, I think last year I hit you up. So the fact that you made this happen, thank you so much.
Oh, like I said, I appreciate you having me. I love Joey. He's from the area originally, moved out there a while back, and we've never had opportunities to do a whole lot in the ring until as I was finishing up my career around this time last year. It was the first time we really got to do something. So, great guy. Love him to death.
I remember, I think it was like last year, you made a Facebook post or something about you, and then I was just doing insane research. You have such an accomplished career, so I'm excited to do this, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you again.
So I'm looking forward to this. So originally pro wrestling, you've accomplished a lot. So what was it about wrestling originally that made you interested in it?
Oh God. I attribute a lot of things to pro wrestling. Like the very first time, I think I was around second grade, and my cousin put on the AWA, and the Road Warriors came out. And right then and there, it was like, I want to get that big. I want to get built that way. What music is this they're coming out to? This is pro wrestling, and I fell in love with all three. I got into working out. I love heavy metal now because of it. And, wrestling has been just something that's been fantastic for me to do over, like almost 28 years. So it just, everything just all about it. Them walking out to the Iron Man, the spikes and the face paint and the size of these guys and just being this little kid, just like in awe of all of it. It just hooked me right off the bat. It's that thing of growing up and you see these guys and they just be lit. It's like, oh my God, they're superheroes.
Yeah.
And it sold me on all of it, even though they were the bad guys.
So what age were you when you first came across it?
Oh, I was in second grade, I think. So I don't even remember how old I was at that point. But yeah, it was. They just popped it on one day, and you got to watch this. Okay.
Wow. So second grade, you come across pro wrestling. For you originally in the Chicago wrestling scene, what is the age that you decide that wrestling is going to be something you start pursuing?
It wasn't until after college. I wasn't familiar with the independents at all. I only knew what was, WCW at the time and previously NWA growing up and watching that on TBS and stuff. And it was got out of college. I was working for a year. The gym I was working at was actually owned by a guy who had worked the independents here in Chicago. And so a couple other guys would come in and they had worked with him on the independents. One guy was still working and we just became friends. He invited me to his show and I was like, okay, these guys are in decent shape. This is pretty good stuff. It's not exactly what I see on TV. And I tried out, I did an open tryout for arena football and I didn't make a team. And I came home and just was looking for something else to do, mainly to keep me motivated to keep working out and stay in the gym. And I checked it out and was like, sure, why not? What's the worst thing that can happen? I'll be terrible at it and I'll never make, it'll just be a hobby and I'll be terrible at it. So who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So originally, when you're in college, is pro wrestling even in consideration for you?
At that point in time, no, like I said, I had no clue how to get involved in it.
Were you still like interested in wrestling at the time or
Oh
no?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, in college, being on a budget, I would watch the pay-per-views or I'd actually listen to them because I'd be the pay-per-view channels on cable. So it'd be all scrambled. So I couldn't see anything, but I would listen to the pay-per-views and stuff because I was still a huge fan
Hmm.
and I just loved everything about it. So
Wow. So I'm curious, when you first get involved in wrestling, what is like the Chicago wrestling scene at the time? Is there any strong points or anything that stands out, you'd say?
at that point, not a lot of strong points, to be honest with
Okay.
you. Chicago Indies, at the time, the athletic commission um, was overseeing all the pro wrestling still. So there were really only, I think, like three indie companies or three schools that were running their own shows in the Chicagoland area. And I got tied in with Windy City Pro Wrestling, stuck around with them for almost 2 years before I decided to break away. And at that point, too, the athletic commission decommissioned pro wrestling. You didn't have to have a paramedic on hand. You didn't have to pay the state. And about another 10 other independent companies popped up around Chicago. And it just kind of blew up at that point. And it was still like it was in the early days. It was 98. So it was still like ECW was more had a cult following, wasn't going into like everybody's household where everybody knew what ECW even was.
Hmm.
And so it was going through that evolution from the old school into more of the new and the spottier stuff and the hardcore and things like that. And it just we set the tone, myself and one guy, Jason Rain, he started about a month after I did. We became friends, and I think we probably wrestled about 50 matches against each other. And we did one of the first ladder matches I think Chicago ever had. I don't know of any others in any other independents at the time. And beating the crap out of ourselves with the ladder, to be honest with you, was like, I love this.
Wow.
This spectacle is what it's all about to me. And we just kind of transitioned things. I had become a huge Japanese wrestling fan, and he was a huge ECW fan. So he loved watching Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam and everybody else. And I was a Kobashi and Akiyama guy. And we would just kind of blend some of those spots and things that they did in ECW with some of the hard hitting stuff we were seeing from All Japan at the time. And we both made really good names for ourselves strictly because of the fact that we were doing something completely different than anybody else was doing
Hmm.
in the area at the time. Everybody else was still in your basic cookie cutter psychology matches. And we just kind of changed the narrative, I think, to be honest with you. And I'm not trying to stroke my own ego or anything like that, but we really did kind of change the tone of the way Chicago wrestling was being viewed by at least the people in Chicago. We gave it a breath of fresh air, I think.
So for you, how was that first ever ladder match in Chicago?
It was a blast.
Yeah,
To
because
be
like you
honest
said,
with
it's like
you.
never really been done down there.
Yeah, it was a blast. We actually did a dry run that kind of had some hiccups in it, in it across the border in Indiana. Um, like the music didn't play it right, and then we tried to get the belt to be lowered down, and the belt wouldn't come down. It was kind of a cluster train wreck.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if I can
Oh, you
swear.
you could, yeah, if you want to, yeah.
It was kind of a train wreck, and in the end, we ended up doing the match and pulling it off. And the promoter, Sam DeCero, was just like he was dead set against it after the first hiccup. And we went out there and it was like, okay, we went in the back after and we decided to put the match on a little bit later in the show because of the problems we were having. And we just looked at each other and were like, we have to kill each other. Sam is never going to let us do this at the big show or Battle of the Belts show in front of like 1,000 people unless we kill each other right now. And so we just agreed. It's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry right now, but let's go hurt each other. And
Wow.
we basically went out there and just threw a lot of caution to the wind, and we're taking bumps and not protecting ourselves on it just to make it look as sick as possible. And in the end, after we were done, he just looked at the two of us and was like, "You two are fucking crazy." And we're like, "Well, we told you we want this match, and we think this is something that'll be really good for Battle of the Belts." And he's like, "You got it." He goes, "We'll fine tune some stuff, but you got it because that was insane." And so he let us go forward with it.
Wow. When you talk at the beginning, I'm curious, how is Vic Capri originally born? What is the inspiration behind Vic Capri?
Um, I had a lot of trouble kind of finding a character for
Uh-huh.
myself. So Vic Capri was more or less, everybody kept telling me, even when I had long hair, was like, "You remind me of Benoit. You remind us of Benoit. And you remind us of Dynamite Kid." So it's just like, I kind of leaned into it. Just the intensity and when I was a heel, just playing a little bit of arrogance to it and things like that. And letting the, over the years, I've kind of told like my wrestling students, I'm like, I'm a heel if I'm smiling. If I'm not smiling, I'm a babyface because I'm focused in on being intense and everything like that. If I'm a heel and I'm smiling, it's just I'm being intense, but it's that smug asshole portion of it that gets rolled into it.
Yeah.
I really, honestly, after I came back from neck surgery, it was a couple years before I really kind of felt like I honed into an actual character for myself and really showing, really just it taking that intensity up a couple more notches from where it was when I was younger and still kind of shy. And like the first time I was out there, I was running around in speedos and I'm hitting somebody, and I'm just like, as I'm doing it, I was thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing? This is insane.
Yeah.
I'm like, this isn't me. I was the shy kid that didn't talk to people, and now I'm out here basically naked punching someone. So it took a long time for me to really open up and embrace being a character, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And then originally, when you look at your career, what would you consider Vic Capri's first big opportunity in wrestling? Because you did a lot, but for you, what's that first one you'd say?
It had to be the Super 8, the
Yeah.
ECW Super 8,
Yep.
you know, and I owe all of it to Christopher Daniels, actually, to be completely honest with you. I owe tons of stuff from him, especially for the beginning of my career. He had come out of Windy City and moved to California, and he was back visiting, and he had just done a tour with Michinoku Pro in a magazine, a Japanese wrestling magazine, and I grab it, flip it over, and I start flipping through it, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you wrestled Jinsei Shinzaki." And he looked at me and goes, "You didn't call him Hakushi." So fuck that gimmick. That's stupid. And from that point on, we just started talking and became really friendly with each other. You know, the tournament was already set by the time I got in, and there was another local wrestler from I think the East Coast, Jimmy V. He tore his ACL and had to pull out. And as soon as Christopher Daniels found out, he messaged me. He told me he told Jim Kettner, the promoter, about me, and he was going to have me send a highlight and a couple matches and stuff. Sent it out to him, and right after he got it, he called me to invite me to be part of the tournament.
Wow. I gotta
Yeah,
ask you, what is like that phone call from Jim Kettner like?
it was kind of surreal because at that point, I had only worked for Windy City. I had never worked anywhere else. At that time, the main promotions in Chicago, you didn't work any other companies. You worked for them, and that was it. Because the other companies were offshoots of Windy City that were people that were disgruntled or had bad blood and decided to leave and start their own thing. So that phone call was just like, oh shit, what do I do?
Yeah.
I've never traveled without any of my buddies that I train with. I've never wrestled anybody outside of Windy City. I've never, I don't. And I had to scramble to get 8x10s taken and put together some highlight tapes because also at the same time, Jim Kettner's like, we have an agreement with Kevin Kelly. He'll be at the show. So make sure you have something to give to him if he likes you and this and that, blah, blah. And I'm like, my head just started spinning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a real eye-opening experience because it was nothing that I had experienced yet at all.
How was the experience wrestling Christopher Daniels? You talk about that being such a big opportunity. I think when you wrestled too, it was like the fourth annual ECWA. So starting to build steam to see what it became. Like you're one of like the pioneers for it, basically.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, you had the Hardys and people like that in it before me.
Vic Capri's
Uh,
still on that list.
but I think it was a great group of guys that were in the tournament. It was fantastic. And we're working with Christopher Daniels. I've got a chance to work with him, a handful of times after that as well. But I mean, the tournament really blew up, especially like the following year.
Hmm.
You had who was it, Low Key, Spanky, American Dragon, Kazina, all these guys were in the tournament too. So it was the year before me and our year, we didn't have as big of names that came out of it,
Yeah.
but it was still something that was really big and special, and I grew to become friends with Scoot Andrews, who I believe was in the finals against Christopher Daniels.
Hmm.
We did some work with having him come to Chicago with some other promotions that I started working with. So I got to work him again here. Kettner had brought me back out for a couple more shows. I got to work with him on the East Coast as well. He helped me out getting down to Florida. I got to
Wow.
work him there. So it was just making that connection and opening that door. Like I said, not just working Christopher Daniels, but getting to know him and become friendly with him. It was the best thing I could have done for myself because it opened so many doors. And I learned a ton from him in just the way of structuring matches and what we can do and how to change things up a little bit here and there. That to kind of break away from that cookie cutter psychology, and just throwing a spot here and there and getting your shit in really.
Hmm.
So it really helped me out tremendously, working with him. And then again, because of that, I got some extra work at WWE. Because of that match, I got in the following year the King of the Indies for APW out in California, which then I became friends with Modest and Donovan Morgan and Vinny
Wow.
Massaro. And so getting to work Christopher Daniels was more than just a learning experience in the ring and an honor to work with somebody as good as he is. But it really it blew everything up for me. That the ECWA tournament got me in magazines for the first time as well.
Hmm.
So everything that happened with me getting exposure early on is all attributed to me is to Christopher Daniels.
Wow. And then when you talk about it, you mentioned W. Is this when you get matches for the WWF from the Jim Kettner relationship?
Yeah, because I had met Kevin Kelly, and Kevin had invited me to be an extra
Nice.
a couple times. I think I did like 4 or 5 matches. I worked Joey Legend, who was doing the Just Joe gimmick at the time.
Yep. Crash.
Got to work Kai and Tai, got to work Crash Holly, S.A. Rios, and then just another local guy one time on a dark match as well.
Hmm.
So a couple of them were on the old syndicated shows that they would put on and things like that. So it really, like I said, it opened a ton of doors.
Yeah. Was there anything from any of those matches that stand out to you?
Um, Crash Holly,
Hmm.
he gave me a lot in the match that we had with each other, and I overheard him talking to somebody afterwards, and they asked him why they give. He's like, "Why'd you give the kid so much in the match? It's just syndicated match. You should have just pretty much squashed him." And I heard him say, "How do I know he's not going to be The Rock next year?" And now I did him a favor, and if he does turn out to be, he owes me one. And that just kind of stuck with me.
Hmm.
Um, his passing hurt because that meant so much to me that he gave me as much as he did in that match. So it it, it really kind of changed my outlook on things, and making sure that everything I did wasn't just for me in the ring. It is really what it opened my eyes to, of helping out other people and making sure it's not about me in the ring. It's about the wrestling business. It's about the fans. It's about the boys and the camaraderie and all those things. And I just tried to make a shift and not worry so much about the spots and what was going on. And I started to focus on some different things. And like we talk a lot now with training kids with the in between moments. The move isn't what's important. It's the 5 seconds that lead up to the move and the 5 seconds after the move. What are you doing? How are you doing these things? And what are you telling the crowd? And it really helped me find those things in what I was doing.
Wow. Well, you're an absolute legend. Like I was telling you before this recording, I was recording with Vito Thomaselli, and he talked very highly of you too. So you've obviously had an impact on a lot of people in pro wrestling.
Yeah, I've known Vito for a number of years too. He was one of the first handful of matches, I think, after I left Windy City as well.
Wow.
My very first match after I left Windy City was against Ace Steel. And then shortly after, it was a tag match against him and Danny Dominion. And then I followed up with a tag match against Vito Tomaselli and his partner at the time, for a smaller company here in Chicago as well. So he was one of those first people that I got to work outside of Windy City. And I tell my students now, where it's more of, you don't know how to be a worker until you step away from your home promotion or work or wrestling your your friends that you're students with, and walking in a locker room, somebody you've never met before, and you got to call something from scratch, and you don't know their timing, you don't know their movements and these things, and making those adjustments on the fly in the ring is what really teaches you how to be a good wrestler.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you about your perspective on the business, but first, you mentioned one person. Is there anything that stood out? You wrestled quite a few times wrestling Ace Steel. I think you did a 2 out of 3 falls match. You did an Iron Man match early on. Anything stand out wrestling Ace Steel? Another great mind in pro wrestling.
He was one of my favorite people to work with.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, um, as I started building more intensity into what I was doing, I started to find, the people that matched that intensity, it just made those matches that much better. And he was one of those people early on that was one of the only people that could really match that intensity. And we became friends after that first match. And it just kind of, from then on, it just turned. He's the one that got me in IWA Mid-South. Him and Punk. They put in a word for me with Ian Rock and got me down there. And then it turned into me and Ace having a feud there. And it just started to become one of those things where it's like what happened with Jason with the ladder match. It's like, you apologize before the match, things are going to be snug. Let's go out there and kill each other. Let's put on a show, and I'm going to say I'm sorry now, and we'll get it out of the way. And we just both kind of lived with that and went out there and did what we wanted to do. He taught me a ton about structure and timing and movement and things like that, just from being in the ring with him. Being on the road with, we were on the road with, it was, God, at the time, it was me, Punk, Cabana, Adam Pierce, and a few other guys from the Indies in Chicago. And they came from a different wrestling school, and they were taught a little different than I was. Again, Ace had come from Windy City, so did Danny, and then they started their own school. And just listening to them talk, and in their minds for wrestling were so not that old school, um, that I was bred on when I first started at Windy City. It helped me open up my eyes to a lot more that we could do.
Wow. And you talk about it. You mentioned a company, IWA Mid-South, especially during that time on top of its game. What was like your introduction over there? It was your first match, isn't it Quack?
That was my match with Quack. And
Insane.
I still love telling the story because we got there late. We
Okay.
got into town late, and the match before us was on deck. And as we were walking in, the bell rang to end the match that They was before them. And I ran into the locker room. They're like, we got about 15 minutes. And I told Quackenbush, I'm like, I do this, 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 and this. What do you want to do? And I started changing. And he just started talking to me, and I'm like, we can do this here. And yeah, we'll do this here. I want to show you this one move that I do. Okay, pick me up for it. We went out there and we had it honestly, when I watched the match back, I'm surprised it went as well as it did,
Wow.
considering we really had about 10 to 15 minutes to put everything together and then go out there and perform. I do know I caught him in the groin, hit him in the nuts on the moonsault. So I had to take a little bit of time to sell, to give him a little bit of time to catch his breath on accident. So that's the other thing that stands out in that match. But just he was another one, just a great guy. We follow each other on Instagram. He's posted my picture after I came back and things like that. And we had a brief conversation. And it was just one of those things. It was just like some reason it clicked. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It just did. And that's what I loved about that match too. In that match, when I did this one big high spot, that's when Ian Rotten was like, he's got a job whenever he wants it.
Wow.
He can come as often as he wants. And it was just like, and it just rolled from there too.
What was like the atmosphere like wrestling for IWA Mid-South?
It was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some horror stories here and there, but you get that with every promotion. It got to the point like Ian was separating the babies and the heels, two different locker rooms, wanting everybody to call everything in the ring, and you had the pee bucket in the corner of the each locker room that somebody had to go empty halfway through the show. But honestly, when it comes down to it, like at one point, we went out and we were clearing the ring of the heels after the hardcore main event. And I'm chasing guys off. And all of a sudden I look over and Harley Race has got his arm around my neck. And he's like, yeah, get the hell out of here, blah, blah, blah. And he's yelling at the guys as we're running him off. And I was just like, that's Harley fucking Race. And it blew my mind.
Wow.
So the atmosphere was good. Ian always treated me really well. He always really did take care of me as best he could. Even when money was tight, he took care of all of us as best as he could. I think he really liked the whole group of us that came down together from Chicago all the time.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about Chicago, especially, what are like for you the early days of Dreamwave Wrestling like?
The early days, so you mean Revolution
When you
Championship in
first started with
2001?
Dreamwave, what were they like?
So when I first started, Jay Repsol had started the company. It was called Revolution Championship in 2001.
Okay.
He took a break for a number of years and came back, I want to say in '07 or '08, and created Dreamwave. Well, it's night and day. Um, the first concept of Revolution Championship was not a PG show,
Okay.
not at all.
Yeah.
The fans would swear at us and just talk shit constantly. When he changed it, it really blew up after they came back and they made Dreamwave, and it was one of those things like some of the fans remembered me from before because I was just coming back from being gone for 4 or 5 years and having neck surgery, and I had been back, I want to say 6 or 7 months, and just working one indie here. And I got the phone call from J Rep, and he's just like, "Hey man, are you back?" I'm like, "Oh, if you got some shows, I'll come work for you." And he sent me a text message with every show that he had for the year. And my response was, I guess I'm back.
Wow.
And we just ran from there. He put me in a heel stable with Mustafa Ali and Austin Roberts, and he was the manager. And it just, I got to wrestle some people that I hadn't wrestled in years, that like Acid. And I got to meet Marche Rocket, who got to Windy City just after I left, and he was up and coming. And it blew my mind to see how it had changed, especially because my first match, I broke my nose and it was just pouring blood.
Yeah.
And as it's pouring blood, the ring announcer comes rushing over to the side of the apron, and he hands me a towel. He goes, "Wipe up the blood. It's PG show." And in my head, I was like, "Get the fuck out of here." But I'm like, "Oh, I didn't realize that he had switched over to total PG like that, where there's a spot with Ace Steel when it was Revolution Championship. He got crotched on the top rope, and somebody had to blow up sheep called the Love You and put it in front of him and was bouncing him so he looked like he was having sex with it.
Yeah.
And nobody cared.
Wow.
And now it's like, oh shit, I'm not even supposed to be bleeding in the ring. So it was a complete shift from what he was doing previously, but it worked.
Hmm.
That's what the fans wanted. The fans bought into it because they bought into the people he was bringing in and the character work and things like that, and just the storylines he was creating. And so it just blew up.
Yeah, and to go with that, you talk about making the change for Dreamwave Wrestling. What is it about Dreamwave that's so special? Because you've been a part of the indie scene for a long time, and you've seen indies come and go, but Dreamwave, even now, is still killing it. So what do you think it is about Dreamwave?
Jay Repsol has just an amazing vision for what he wants to do, and
Okay.
it's the town, to be honest with you. More than anything else, it's LaSalle. Um, for them to go see pro wrestling on a larger scale, one, it's going to cost them way more money. Two, they're going to have to drive 2 hours to Chicago, or they're going to have to go for a house show in Peoria, or go down to Springfield for a house show or something like that. Because none of the big like pay-per-views or TV was going to be in those places. And this was right in their backyard. And Jay just created something where even when it was Revolution, he had the Royal Road Warriors come in. He had Candido. I wrestled Raven in the first iteration when it was Revolution Championship back in the day in the early 2000s.
Hmm.
So he was always trying to do something to help the community and give the fans what they were missing, and making it just because it was in their backyard. They don't have to travel, 2 hours for everything. And the community just loved it and embraced the whole thing. So we all became, especially when it became Dreamwave. Once I got in there, I saw like at the after party, the camaraderie of all the boys hanging out afterwards, because the whole crew would go out to the after party,
Hmm.
and we would hang out at the bars, and then we would go get breakfast, and then go to hotels or drive home or whatever we were doing. And it just we became part of the community. They welcomed us all and they accepted all of us because they would come to the after party and hang out, have drinks with us.
Wow.
You know, so they loved the fact that, like I said with the Road Warriors, it's like these guys are superheroes, and I think they loved the fact that the superheroes were coming right to their backyard, and not only coming there, but they were hanging out with them and having a drink with them and talking with them and all these things. And Jay was still bringing in the bigger names, but we became um, basically part of the town, like almost like you want to say like citizens of the town. We became part of the community as well. And that's what made it so special, I think, was the closeness to the community and what we were giving them and how much they appreciated us for doing it is what made it so special to me too. You know, aside from that, I have other reasons to like LaSalle. I had met a girl at the time early on, and we didn't make it, but I have a beautiful 22-year-old daughter, or she'll be 22 next month. You know, so and she's lived out there, and I've gone back and forth out there aside from wrestling as well.
Nice.
So it became really a second home, and I know the people that are out there have looked out for her and things like that. Now that she's working at a restaurant out there, they come and I'll get messages. Oh, your daughter waited tables on Facebook. Your daughter was our waitress at the restaurant. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So,
And especially looking at it, throughout all the years, is there like one Wave match that's so special to you or stands out that you've had?
oh yeah, Suzuki by far.
Okay,
You
yeah.
know, I've had some really fun matches at Dreamwave. Um, like we did a four-way tag match, and the Steiner brothers were involved in it, and I got to work with Rick Steiner a little bit. That was great. Another company I got to work, Jerry Lynn for Pro Wrestling Blitz. Those matches all stand out to me the most. But Suzuki was one of those things because I became such a big Japanese wrestling fan
Hmm.
that and it actually was kind of a joke. I saw him bring in Maki Ito in Yamashita,
Hmm.
and jokingly I sent him a text message going, "Hey, before I retire, I'd love to work Ishii, Suzuki, or Kenta." And we just kind of laughed it off. And then about 6 months later, I got the phone call. He's like, "You're working Suzuki," and I about cried.
Yeah.
I started to well up. I was like, "You're this is a rib, right?" He's like, "No, I'm being serious. You're working Suzuki." The rib came later when uh, we thought Suzuki had to get pulled from the show. And he told me I was going to wrestle someone else. And then he released the flyer the next day, and it's me and Suzuki. And I'm like, wait, what? Hold on. Dude, was it, huh? And so I had a message. I'm like, what is going on? He goes, I made it happen. And I'm like, okay. Um, I've never been that nervous in my life.
Wow.
I can honestly say that, you know, yeah, especially like they got him up doing meet and greet and all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh, please don't piss him off. He's the former king of prank craze. He will just kick the shit out of me if you piss him off.
Yeah.
And so that's all that was going through my mind. Super nice guy, so easy to work with. I had a blast working with him. I had the referee get telling me Eric Cannon was helping produce the match, and he's going, Cannon said to breathe and slow down. He knows you're nervous.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit. So, but yeah, that was something special. I have pictures up on my wall. Dreamwave made a T-shirt of me and Suzuki together from the match. They call it Dreamwave Memories. That's getting framed and going to go on the wall with the
Wow.
pictures and things like that. So it was because I got to wrestle one of my heroes,
Yeah.
coming up and watching him do what he was doing while I was taking the time off in Noah and All Japan and stuff was just it was to get to share the ring with him was just absolutely amazing.
So if someone was to ask you, is that the match? Like if a complete stranger is gonna ask you what's the Vic Capri match you're gonna point him to, is it the Suzuki match you'd say?
Probably not.
Really? Okay. What would it
Um,
be?
I'm I'm happy with the match by all means. I'm happy with the match. I'm not happy with myself in the match. I felt like I wasn't laying stuff in as much as they probably should have, or or winding up my strikes or coming up short on some of my chops and things like that. I watched it back and it's just like I feel like it looked like I'm taking it so easy on him so that he doesn't kill me.
Wow.
And that's what pissed me off about it. Overall, the match, I enjoyed the match, and yes, I think the match is good. I'm not happy with my performance in the match, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
Um, like the one match, and I wish I had footage of it. I did an Extreme Rules match with Jerry Lynn for Pro Wrestling Blitz, probably about 8 years before that, 9 years before that, and that match was fun as hell. And I think I performed better. But even when I talk to my students, because I have a handful of students I work with, when they ask me questions like, did you finally like, you feel like it clicked for you? And I tell them, oh God, it wasn't until like 2014.
Wow.
They're like, you started in 98. I'm like, yeah, I took 4 years off too, but it didn't really click. And I don't feel like it came into my own as a character and everything else until about 2014. And that's when I just kind of just gave up on being that shy kid and just took it by the reins and took wrestling by the balls at that point. And it was just like, okay, this is how everybody sees me. So this is how I'm going to be, and that was that. And I had a run of matches with a company from here in Chicago called Berwyn Championship against another local guy, Shogun Logan, Trevor Outlaw, and Storm Grayson. And those three, and then I had a couple matches with Joe Alonzo as well with that.
Hmm.
And though that string of matches there, I sit back and watch and go, those are some of my best matches, I think, overall. Just the way we did it. Like Shogun Logan was one of my favorites too. He was another one could match my intensity, and literally we would just go out there and kick the shit out of each other.
Wow.
And so it just made it that much more fun, I think. But those are the matches I normally gear people towards. If you really want to see me work and work really well, aside from the matches with Ace early on, this is when I kind of character and everything else just kind of hit its stride finally. And those are the matches I direct them to.
Wow. And especially in your career, I'm curious, where does the idea come for you to team with Daivari at first?
J-Rep.
Wow.
It was all his idea, and then calling us foreign affairs because I was the Italian guy and he was Iranian.
Yeah.
And it was, I had met Sean, his brother, met Ariya briefly, I think he had, what was it, a resistance championship show here in Chicago. And then he started showing up at Dreamwave and we hit it off. Um, myself, and Lindsay Dordato, um, became pretty good friends, and we always kind of hung out together. And Eric Cannon, we always kind of hung out together at the after parties here and there, and then would go get breakfast together. So, and it just turned into Jay Rebels was like, "We're gonna have you guys tag together." Okay, and we just rolled with it and had a blast. And that's
Wow.
where we got to work the Steiner brothers, where Rick Steiner bit my ass, and I went home to my girlfriend with teeth marks.
How was it originally? You mentioned it numerous times, just getting to share the ring with the Steiners.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
Honestly, calling the match was funny because the two other teams were talking about all this flippy stuff they wanted to do, and Scott just kind of looked at them and looked at me and Arya, and he goes, "Arya, you and I will do this, 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 and this." He said, "Okay." He goes, "You're his partner?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Get with my brother. My brother will probably do this, this, and this with you, and keep in mind when he bites you, he'll do the bite spot. He's really going to bite you." And I'm like, "Okay." Rick wasn't even by us. He was watching on the TV. And so I'm like, they kept talking. I'm like, I'll go talk to Rick. I walk over and tell Rick, I'm like, Scott said maybe we should do this and this in here. He goes, "Oh, yeah, yeah." And we went out there and um, he just ran his normal basic spot with the power slam and biting the ass and playing all that bit up. And he's a super nice guy because I guess they gave him a hard time because of the way he did the power slam. And I had seen him do it numerous times. I know he doesn't hook and like grab here. He kind of
Yeah.
goes here and here because he catches you out of a vertical. And like they said, they check on you because you look like you came down funny on your arm. I'm like, no, I've seen you throw that power slam hundreds of times. I knew exactly how it was coming. I was fine. I'm like, you planted me, no problem. He's, oh, okay. And so then him and I sat and talked for a bit after that you know. So it was because I remember I remember seeing Mid-South back in the day before we turned into UWF, and he
Hmm.
was tagging with Sting, and they were heels before they turned on Sting and everything. So I've been watching him way before even Scott showed up. So,
Wow.
it was another one of those just surreal moments of God, these are the guys I grew up watching, you know.
Well, it's crazy for me. I'm in college right now. Instead of in college classes, I'm watching your match. So thank you again.
Well, thank you.
When we talk about your career, this one I'm curious, when does the ice pick come in? Whose idea is this?
So when we first started, so my real name is Mike, and Windy City there were like four Mikes already.
Okay.
So the promoter had a list of names, and he wanted to do the guy that got me started. They were switching over to do this Italian mafia gimmick, and because Sam DeCero was Italian, Mike Sampson was Italian, and Mike Carey was Italian, and they wanted to bring me into it. And so he had a list of names, and it was actually Vince Capri and Vic Capone. And they didn't want to use Capone with Chicago cliche, and they didn't want to use Vince because of Vince McMahon. So it became Vic Capri. And as soon as I said I'm going to be Vic Capri, Mike Carey, who's the guy that got me started, he goes, "Ice Pick Vic," because they all had to have their mafia nicknames. There's
Wow.
Vito Two Fingers Fontaine, Iron Mike Sampson, the Don Sam DeCero, and then I became Ice Pick Vic. So that's all it was this stupid old school Italian mafia group kind of thing, and we all had our gangster nicknames.
Wow. And when you look at your career, you've done so much in wrestling, but when was the time that you decided like you're gonna start winding down in wrestling? Because as of now, isn't like your last match September 27, 2025, I think?
Yeah, it was. I had decided to start winding it down right when Dreamwave they had their 100th show, and then they took a break, and he was done. And then all of a sudden, I was at my daughter's high school graduation in LaSalle, and I get a phone call from Jay Repsol, and he's like, "Hey, I don't know if you're on board. I'm going to start running again, just once in a while, kind of thing." And I'm like, it was funny because I'm actually in town, and yes, let's do it. And at that point, it was only going to be maybe once or twice a year. And then the next thing you know, it was every other month.
Yeah.
Um, and I had told him, I'm like, at that point, I'm like, I am looking to wind things down. I'm like, I will keep it running as long as I can. You let me know what you want me to do, and we'll just play it by ear. And I think it ended up another like 4 years or so, 3, 4 years.
Yeah.
Um, where eventually I stopped taking other bookings. Yeah, it got to the point where I was just really working, especially like the last year and a half. I was really only working for like two or three companies at that point. I stopped taking other bookings, um, or I just priced myself out of the game purposely because I didn't want the booking and I wanted to stay home, just because my body was hurting and things. But if people paid me, I was all right. I'll be there.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was. You know, I realized after I turned 50, it was like, well, this is getting rough. I've had one neck surgery, and when I came back from the neck surgery, I even remember having a conversation with Ace Steele, and he's like, you're on borrowed time. You're really working on borrowed time with the neck injury and everything. Because I've got a fusion, 4, 5, and 6. There's a plate and 6 screws. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And plus, I had a ton of concussions. And so I decided at that point, I'm like, I'm starting to hurt. The shoulder is starting to give me problems, the numbness in the hand here and there. And so I decided to slow down at that point. But I still went like another year or so just working, just cutting back more than anything else, was just cutting back on the shows.
So is this match in September going to be Vic Capri's last match you ever have?
Well, that was last September.
Yeah, is it going to be the last one you ever have?
Never say never.
Okay.
Um, so I'm sure because I've told some of my students that they want to wrestle me. I'm like, yeah, we'll figure something out. Um, I know I'm not what I used to be. And I know I was slowing down and I missed a step and I just didn't like the way I was moving in the ring
Hmm.
when it was coming down to that. But I don't know. Like so far, Vic has not come back. I do some other stuff for another company. Wear a mask called Biff Beware. It's called Super Wrestlers. It's here in Chicago, um, and it's much more. It's all character work.
Yeah.
They don't even care if our entrance is longer than our matches, and my matches for them are basically miss something, get hit, get pinned, and my entrance literally is longer than my matches. The
Nice.
longest match I've had was about 2 minutes.
Love it.
So
Yeah.
I really do get to save myself. But with that, I'm playing a completely different character. Um, it, I'm not. So Vic hasn't been around at this
Okay.
point, and I don't really see him coming back. But again, never say never. There's always a possibility if something comes up, if the right situation presents itself, I'll go do it.
Wow. So for a guy who's accomplished so much in pro wrestling originally, did you always want to give back and train?
I never thought I'd actually be able to.
Wow.
I never thought I'd be good enough to actually teach anybody, which I still have my doubts here and there, even when I'm training them, that I'm screwing these kids up. Until I hear them, they follow to a show or they're helping out in a show, and the name that's there is talking to them, and I'm standing there and I hear the name telling them exactly what I've told them, and then I'm like, oh, good, I'm not screwing up their careers, thank God. um, like we had Brian Keith come in. We had about 15 kids there that day. And at one point he said something and I felt all of them turn, look at me. And I was like, yeah, I know. I've said it hundreds of times. Now you know it's not bullshit.
Yeah.
so um, it was taking on a girl, Shelly Benson, who needed the help. She just kind of rushed through a lot of things here in Chicago and was getting bookings. She's attractive, had a different look to her, piercings and tattoos. And nobody was really taking the time to try and help her understand the structure of a match and the psychology and try and help her with some of her movements and things like that. So working with her and then meeting a few other people that would come in and help me train her so that I could take a step back and have eyes on what was going on and correct things, that's when I started realizing I might be able to do this. And then there's another girl that came in and she's like, this school was garbage and I've been gone for a year with an injury and now I don't want to go back. And I said, come on. She started training with me. Her name was Lulu Lorena. And from that, like from the school that she had come from, like four or five other people jump ship and came over by me too. And so just working with them, it it's been an experience. Um, it's I have I'm lucky I have a really good core group of students, and it's a nice little family. I got one couple of them that call me Pop Pop
Wow.
instead of Coach. So it's turned into something different than just like, oh, I don't think I could do this to, actually legitimately care about these people. I think they care about me and they care about what's happening. And a couple of them have told me that they were ready to just write off wrestling and be done with it. And I made them enjoy it again. So if I can do that for a few people, then that's fantastic.
Yeah. For everything you've done, I'm curious, going to the new year, you say never, but what does this new year hold for Vic Capri? I know training, you're still getting new students, you're killing it there. Is it just keep growing the school, or what are you up to nowadays?
Right now, I'm trying to grow the school as much as I can.
Nice.
I do prefer the smaller classes. I can nitpick here and there and work on things a little bit easier. I don't know if you've heard, there's a local guy out here, David Ali.
Hmm.
He has kind of taken him on as an assistant. He helps me run my Wednesday classes, and lets me kind of sit back and really focus on you're doing this wrong, fix your footwork here and do this and this. Um, he trained with AR Fox, he trained at the Nightmare Factory, and so he's got a real good lineage with him as well. And it's just becoming it's finally actually starting to feel more like a good training school instead of just one-off personal training kind of sessions with other people.
Hmm.
It's really come along a long way. I'm trying to get him to take a step back so he starts watching it like I do, to nitpick those things and make sure that people are on the correct lines in the ring and footwork is right. And, pick up watching somebody like you rush that, slow down. It was obvious you rushed that. Your footwork was this, attack on this, take a step back here, do this, slow down, give it a 1-2 count before you go do the next thing. And he's starting to pick up on those things that I throw out there on everybody too. So he's become a long way too.
Wow. Well, Vic, I can't thank you enough. Like I said, like today I'm in college. Like I had two exams. I didn't care about the exams. I cared about interviewing you. So thank you so much for all you've done for me too.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. You got to study though. That's the one
Yeah.
thing I tell my students. It's like your family and school comes first because I got one kid in high school,
Well, like
or
my
two kids in
parents
high
are still
school.
shocked. Like I have dean's list in school, but all I do is watch pro wrestling. So seriously, thank you so much.
Well, thank. I appreciate that, man. That's awesome.
So for you especially, I've ended every interview the same. The day you decide it's all done, I know you say never, but the day you decide it's all done, what do you want Vic Capri's legacy in pro wrestling to be?
Um, Kind of what it is that I've always been professional and not selfish at all. Um, like I tell my students, you're not going out there for yourself. Yes, you should be going out there to do the best you can and get yourself noticed and things like that. But like I try and sit back and remember the fact that when I was in second grade and I saw these guys and I was like, wow, they're superheroes. I want the kids, when I wrestled, I wanted the kids to feel that.
Hmm.
I wanted to give back to the kids that, because it was before the internet. There was no YouTube, there was the secrets of pro wrestling had not come out yet, or none of that bullshit. So there's still a lot of kayfabe. And so whoop, I tried to give that, sorry,
Yeah, you're
I
good.
tried to tell my students, give that to the kids and now take it a step further and give that feeling back to their parents. The parent that brought them to the show. I want you to make the parent of the show go, "Oh, he got him with that. That looked mean. That was nasty." And give that now the kid and their parent are having that same feeling at the same time and having that connection. And that's what I want because I want it for the fans. I want them to feel like I felt when I was a kid watching it And then also just understand that you're not just there for yourself. You're there for the promotion. You're there for your spot on the show. You're there for the match, and you're there for your opponent. Those are the things that come into pro wrestling that you need to focus on more than anything else than just being selfish and being about you, just about you. I've lost way more matches than I've won, but I'll never complain about it. It's not what it's about. That's not what wrestling should be about. This is deep down. Pro wrestling is a brotherhood of men and women that just absolutely love what we do and care about. It's the ones that care about the business more than themselves that are the ones that I think really get it and understand it and really do more than anybody else does.
Yeah. Well, Vic, like I said, man, thank you so much. I remember originally messaging you the fact you made this happen. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for sticking with me since we tried last year and it didn't work. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for doing this, and thank everybody for watching this episode. This was Best for Business.
Thank you for watching this episode of Best for Business. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, because this is Best for Business.